I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak to you as you've invited me to talk about the book, or my book, written brilliantly by Hunter Davis, who was the person able to get over the kind of my attitude, I think, and a lot of people say the way I say things. I did have to insist, though. I know you have a northern image, but I didn't want 100 of the F words that included in natural gas. We had Gordon Ramsay at my house the other day. I can well remember the point. But anyway, yes, he did ruin the cookery if anybody's asking about that. And all I got in reply was 2 fish cakes, but there you are. I do think that the book, I should probably say that the title Prezza is the title the press gave me, and I know there's some wonderful individuals from the press here who've already met them. I'm reading what we're going to write to get tomorrow, but leaving that aside. You can laugh at the what, I know the press won't think you can. It's a name that's been given to me, Prezza. They're also like 2 jags, 5 houses, all these, of course, the titles they've given me. I actually had 1 house and 1 jag. But that's why I say I live the middle class style of life, and that's why I play croquet now. I never thought playing croquet would actually lift the sales 16%, so they presented me with so who knows? I live in hope constantly. They also call me incompetent, a bully, bit of press raffle I think, and also many gaffes. I have to confess what I've made from one time to time. I've given the media the impression, of course, certainly with the celebrity culture, that I must admit that has been part of my style in life, if you like, and I think that the way they printed it is very much in line with that celebrity culture which they're obsessed with now. I think that's unfortunate, but it is inevitable, but it is the way that they now play it. I think it's made easy by the fact I don't have a poker face. It's very easy to tell by my face exactly how I feel. I think it was the Daily Mail that put 6 pictures of me on the front bench with Tony Blair when he told me that Harriet Harman had turned in her kid on 11+ education. I was pleased. And I think that was the proper message from my face. Of course, the other things that I've been involved in, Tracy, the Brown Blair role, all these have been part of my life, which I've had to deal with. Of course, I've made many mistakes as well, and you certainly pay a price for that. Also, the lousy English. You all know now, don't get me grammar right. I don't know whether that's the right way to say it grammatically, but I don't get it right. Sometimes the English is not very good. And
better than Bush.
Pardon?
Better than Bush.
Now, is that a friendly comment? Because I had 1 or 2 things to say about Bush that didn't help me out a little while ago. And of course, wasn't helped by the fact that being a waiter, and I think sometimes I think if you've been a waiter, can you really be a deputy prime minister? There are people who actually think that's true, you shouldn't be able to. And indeed, my first waitering experience was the waiter to Anthony Eden on a ship called the Rangitata. Now you can imagine it was the time of the Suez and it resigned. You would have written about that, Richard, at that time. And if his bad news wasn't bad enough, he got me as a waiter for 6 weeks out of New Zealand. And I can always remember on that day because he was the man who gave me 2 bottles of beer for boxing at sea and 2 hours overtime from the company, putting on a display of boxing. It was a skill that helped me out later in life. Something that gave a great deal of attention to the press, of course, on these occasions. Now, all these, of course, contributed to the general press image that people come up to me and say things about being a bumbling, incompetent bully. I must admit that when 1 or 2 of the Darwinites came to see me and say, oh, we're from the Daily, oh yeah, what paper? Mail, Express, Standard, all objective papers, of course, in the reporting and our system. And we have a useful but short exchange. And then I think he went along later to say, do you really want to be on the same bill as John Prescott? Yeah, that's the wonderful thing of our press. And you can hear me making my gripes about it. If you buy the book, you'll see my picture that I've chosen for the press is on the back page. Which means giving them a salute as I went up to number 10. And I do recall on that occasion, someone, I think her name was Mary Ann Seagal. Now, She wrote all these terrible things, how incompetent, and the language, the punching, all this and that. How could this man be the deputy leader? He's so incompetent, he's done nothing. So fair enough, I think I've done a few things, so I asked her to come in, let's have a discussion. Now, we start the discussion. At the end of the day, what it boiled down to was with these kind of attributes, how could her? She was ashamed of me being the Deputy Prime Minister. Well, it's a judgment, but I know that I personally, my last word to her, clearly you're snobs here, but I'll leave her. That was the end of that conversation. She's written about it since, and I've written about it. And I think in Private Eye you actually call Mary Ann Bighead, didn't you? Is that what her surname was? Anyway, you can see I wasn't over there either. So what this book is about to do, and I'll label in the point about image, it's an attempt to actually just say it's not exactly anything. Yes, some of these things are true about me. Yes, I have made my mistake. Perhaps I say some things when you shouldn't say them, but that's the way I see it, and that's the way I've said it. And of course, it makes you a character, it makes you a celebrity, and you get a lot of attention for it. It's not all true, and I mean that's unfortunate. But what I think my main complaint is, and that's the reason for writing the book really, is just to put some of the things down that I did manage to get right, and are there for us all to see. And therefore you can make a judgment, because I'm not getting any objective judgment in the press. So I personally think that's what the book is about, to correct some of those images. To accept that some of them are correct, and I have to do, and I wouldn't deny that when it is, I have to own up to it as well. But I think to that extent the book is an attempt to just look at the real stories behind some of these things. Now, for example, you'll see the picture about the punch. Now, I was just walking along. I said, I'm innocent. And this guy hit me with an egg. You know what I was supposed to do? Kiss him on the cheek. My reaction was to step back and do what Tony Blair asked him to do, connect with the electorate. I think this one was just like most of his mullet's hairdo. I'm glad I didn't have a mullet's hairdo, otherwise I was supposed to know. But you know what the story about that was? Well, Sky Television had 2 satellite wagons there, they're going to take the shots. There was no meeting for them to film. We had been told there might be an incident, right? And they filmed it. And they had a satellite picture that went immediately down to London. And when it went out on the television, I'm walking along, and all of a sudden I felt this fella in the face. For no reason. And then Adam Bolton comes on and says, we must get rid of this minister, of course, press your red button. But it didn't happen like that, did that? Most people think, why didn't you hit him with your hand, actually? You know, well, you press the red button, it didn't happen. But in reality, the BBC, half an hour later, which was slower in getting down, because it didn't have a satellite band, showed exactly what happened. And therefore, sometimes when you see the media on television or hear the story, it might not be exactly as you see it, just explaining the background. But nobody's really interested in the background. They just want the incident, that is it. A man who's a minister, in this case the Deputy Prime Minister, is in an exchange with the electorate. Poor old Tony, he had that day, you remember that election day, he had the argument with the lady outside the hospital, right? Very concerned about the treatment the husband was getting. He told us on our manifesto day to go out and connect with the electorate, so we went out, and Jack Straw got booed by the police, if you recall, and he went on television that night, and they came out after the television show, and he said, it's there, our manifesto. He said, oh, he said, nothing else can happen. And I said, well, sorry John, Tony, now, what do you mean? John was belted the bloke. you mean the bloke belted John? No, John belted the bloke. Did anybody see it? Live television.